leaden skies above the city of Crescent Crew darkened further as 4T and Razor stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the towering monstrosity of the ninth gate of hell. The gate, a behemoth of blackened steel and grotesque fire-licked motifs, pulsated with an eerie crimson glow, resonating with the deep ominous hum of the underworld. It was a sight that could shake even the most formidable warriors, but 4T and Razor, despite their rapidly pulsating hearts, held their ground. They were here on a mission that could make or break their world. Taking a deep, steadying breath, 4T stepped forward, his hand hovering over the burning surface of the gate. Razor, his dark eyes alight with determined fire, followed suit. The gate groaned in protest, sending a shiver of dread through the desolate cityscape and opened to a sight straight from the darkest nightmares. The underworld was a ghastly spectacle of swirling firestorms, jagged rock formations, and dark, unfathomable chasms emitting bone-chilling roars of the tortured souls. Rivers of molten lava cut through the seared landscape, their fiery tongues licking the barren edges. Despite the chaos, there was a haunting rhythm to it all, a rhythm of raw, destructive power and inevitable dread. As 4T and Razor descended into the abyss, they could feel the weight of the underworld pressing against their souls, the sweltering heat singeing their skins, and the wails of the damned ringing in their ears. But they kept going, their resolution unyielding, their will indomitable. Their descent was a maddening journey through levels of torment and anguish, each darker and more horrifying than the previous. But the two warriors navigated through the treacherous terrain, fought off the grotesque creatures of the underworld that lurked in the shadows, and overcame the torturous heat that threatened to consume them. They were in hell's playground now, and every step they took echoed through the eternity of the underworld, marking the beginning of the most harrowing journey of their lives. The Infernal Descent was merely the start of their trials, the first challenge in their quest for survival and preparation for the apocalypse that loomed ominously over their world. The ninth gate's looming form dwindled behind Razor and 4T as they plunged deeper into the inferno, the embers of their resolve stoked by each hellish encounter. The echoes of their trials reverberated through the underworld, creating a rhythm of courage and determination amid the screams of the damned. Their first trial was the Lake of Sorrow, a tormented expanse of black water, concealing the horror that dwelt beneath its ink-like surface. Each step on the treacherous path across it held the threat of unseen creatures lurking, ready to pull them into the icy depths. They forged ahead, their senses heightened, bodies poised for battle, hearts racing as they skirted the thin line between fear and resolution. With teamwork and ingenuity, they crossed the nightmarish lake, only to face the labyrinth of despair, a maze carved from obsidian, its insidious pathways designed to confound the unwary and feed their growing dread. The walls were alive with the whispers of lost souls, their chilling tales of defeat and surrender. But Razor and 4T did not falter. They navigated the deceptive labyrinth, their shared understanding and unwavering trust in each other lighting their way in the consuming darkness. The third trial, the Valley of Screams, was a vast field of burning sands, each grain a testament to a lost soul's anguish. The very air seemed to vibrate with their torment, a constant piercing soundtrack to the barren expanse. Here, Razor and 4T faced apparitions of their worst fears, spectral manifestations seeking to erode their resolve. Their challenge was not to fight, but to accept and confront their fears, to turn their darkest insecurities into strength. And confront they did, with courage that shook the very bedrock of hell. They stood tall in the face of the phantoms of their past, their grit and tenacity illuminating the oppressive darkness of the valley. The screams gradually faded into whispers, the burning sands cooled under their steadfast gaze, and the spectral demons of their fears dissipated, leaving behind two warriors stronger and more resolute than ever. The trials were grueling, both physically and mentally, pushing Razor and 4T to their limits. But they met each challenge head-on, emerging victorious and stronger from each encounter. They were being tempered by hell itself, a formidable crucible that would either break them or mold them into the warriors they were destined to be. Emerging from the Valley of Screams, Razor and 4T were greeted by a sight that would have frozen the blood of any mortal man. The infernal arena, an immense battlefield, stretched out before them, surrounded by massive ashen columns. In the heart of the arena, flickering against the all-consuming darkness, was the ever-burning pyre of hell. The infernal arena was where the damned were forever locked in combat, a cruel parody of the arenas of old. Demonic gladiators battled each other to the death, only to rise again in an eternal cycle of violence and suffering. Yet, amid this vision of ceaseless torment, Razor and 4T saw their opportunity to forge themselves into warriors truly capable of the battles to come. Without wasting a moment, they stepped into the brutal fray. Each demon they faced was a monstrous abomination, a perversion of nature birthed from the depths of the inferno. They fought with primal fury, their forms constantly shifting between grotesque beasts and twisted parodies of men. Their battles were epic struggles, clashing steel against fang and claw, grace against monstrous strength. Sweat and blood intermingled with the ash-laden air, their exertion palpable in every strained breath, every grunt of effort. Yet Razor and 4T fought, each encounter an embodiment of their indomitable will, their refusal to yield etched in every swing of their weapons, every earth-shaking impact. Between the battles, the two warriors trained, refining their tactics and honing their skills. They would spar against each other, their movements a lethal dance in the flickering firelight. The crack of weapon against the weapon echoed throughout the infernal arena, a testament to their unyielding resolve. They endured, fueled by the burning necessity of their mission. They bled, and with every drop, they became more attuned to the horrors they were destined to face. The fires of hell scorched them, the battles taxed them, and the blood they shed marked their journey. But through all this, they grew stronger, their spirits hardened, their resolve unbreakable. In the heart of hell, amidst fire and blood, Razor and 4T were not just surviving, they were thriving. They were becoming the warriors they needed to be. Their time in the infernal arena was a crucible, forging them in fire and blood, and in its heart, they were being reborn. Warriors of hell, forged for a battle that would determine the fate of their world. The grueling trials of the infernal arena had left Razor and 4T changed, hardened. Every sinew of their bodies had been tried and tested. Every fiber of their beings had faced down the relentless onslaught of the damned. Their bodies bore the scars of their ordeal, each one a badge of honor, a testament to their survival. In the center of the arena, a towering edifice rose from the smoldering depths, the Pillar of Ascension. It was said that only those who had been tempered in the fires of hell and who bore the courage to defy the inferno could climb its blistering heights and emerge back into the mortal realm. The pillar was a coiling serpent of molten rock and fire, a daunting sight even to the most courageous. The heat was blistering, a dry, searing force that threatened to char the flesh from their bones. Yet, undeterred, Razor and 4T steeled themselves for the climb. The ascent was brutal. The heat intensified with each foot they scaled, the air grew thinner, and the rock beneath their hands was scorching, threatening to sear their flesh. Yet they persevered, driven by an indomitable will and the knowledge that failure was not an option. As they climbed higher, the hordes of the damned roared below them, a cacophony of anguish and despair that echoed ominously around the vast arena. Yet amidst this clamor, there was silence in their hearts. The very journey had a purifying effect, burning away the terrors of hell, leaving only the purity of their purpose. They reached the summit amidst a roaring gale of fiery winds. It was here, teetering on the brink of the abyss, that they finally faced their last and most formidable obstacle. A massive winged beast, the guardian of the abyss, loomed over them. Its burning eyes bore into them, a final challenge to be conquered. Their battle with the beast was titanic. They danced around its snapping jaws and whipping tail, blades singing in the air. They struck at the beast, their weapons sparking off its obsidian scales, each blow bringing them closer to victory. With a triumphant roar, they finally felled the beast, its massive form crumbling into ashes that were swept away by the infernal winds. With the guardian defeated, they stood at the precipice of the abyss, the gateway back to the mortal realm. The fires of hell roared below them, but they stood undaunted. They had braved the infernal arena, they had ascended the pillar, and now they were ready to return. Hand in hand, they leapt into the abyss. The fires roared around them, a vortex of flame and fury, but they were unafraid. They had faced the trials of hell and emerged stronger, fiercer, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Their plunge through the abyss was a blur of searing heat and blinding light, a symphony of flame and fury. And then quite suddenly, they were through. They landed heavily, their bodies steaming but alive. They had ascended from the abyss, their trials in hell behind them. Now they were ready to face the future, a future they would face together, as brothers in arms, hardened by fire and blood, unyielding in the face of adversity. The streets of shadows awaited their return, and they were ready to answer its call. Freed from the fiery torment of hell, Razor and 4T stood in the heart of Crescent City, a world so familiar, yet now imbued with an alien tinge. The skyscrapers loomed ominously in the twilight, their silhouettes etched in harsh relief against the fading light. The city's nightlife was just beginning to stir, but beneath the facade of normalcy, the shadows pulsed with a malevolent life of their own. They walked the empty streets, their steps echoing ominously off the cracked concrete. The city was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath in anticipation. The air was heavy with an unseen tension, an intangible dread that wrapped itself around every corner, seeping into every crevice. Every nerve in their bodies screamed at them, a visceral warning of the impending danger. This was no longer the city they once knew. It was now a battlefield. A war was coming, and it was here that the first blow would be struck. In the heart of the city they found their enemy. The OG, risen from the dead, stood surrounded by his spectral minions. His eyes glowed with a sickly green hue, and his voice echoed with an ethereal quality that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. "You've returned," the OG sneered, his voice a serpent's hiss that echoed in the silence. "I've been expecting you." Their confrontation with the OG was as inevitable as the setting sun. Their path had always led to this, a final clash amidst the shadows of Crescent City. The specters surrounding the OG surged forward, an ominous tide of ethereal enemies. The battle that ensued was a blur of movement and energy. Razor and 4T moved as one, their every motion in sync, a testament to their bond and the trials they had endured. They cut swaths through the spectral forces, their every strike fueled by the knowledge that failure meant the city's doom. But the OG was no easy adversary. He met their assault with a savage energy, his spectral powers a daunting force. Every blow they landed seemed to pass through him, his spectral form reforming with a chilling laugh. Yet they stood resolute, their resolve unbroken. They had faced the trials of hell and emerged stronger, fiercer. They would not be beaten here, not in their city. The OG's laughter filled the night, but it was their roar of defiance that echoed the loudest. Their battle with the OG raged on, a struggle of wills amidst a city in shadow. They fought, not just for their survival, but for the very soul of Crescent City. This was their city, their home, and they would not let it fall into the hands of the damned. But as the battle raged on, a sinking realization dawned upon them. The OG was stronger than ever. The battle was just the beginning, the opening gambit in a war that was yet to come. The shadows of Crescent City had come alive, and they were far from done. The battle ended on an uncertain note, leaving both parties wounded but standing, the city's fate hanging in the balance. It was clear now that the true battle for Crescent City was just beginning. As the dust of battle settled, Razor and 4T surveyed the broken city around them. Crescent City had endured another violent upheaval, and now the night held a hush of uncertainty. It was as if the city was holding its breath, caught in the limbo of impending war. They had faced the OG and lived to tell the tale, yet their battle had only confirmed their worst fears. The OG was stronger, more ruthless, his spectral form imbued with powers that seemed to defy the natural order. Their city was under siege from forces they could scarcely comprehend, let alone confront. Exhaustion clung to their bones like a second skin, but they refused to let it consume them. They had returned from the ninth gate of hell, fought their way through torment and trials, endured fire and bloodshed. They had come too far to let exhaustion claim them now. The moon shone high above, casting long, eerie shadows across the broken city. The quiet was deceiving. It felt as though the city was merely sleeping, waiting to awaken to a new uncertain day. A sense of urgency propelled them forward. The OG had revealed his hand, and now they needed to plan their next move. They made their way back to the heart of the city, the buildings and landmarks standing like familiar friends amidst the chaos. Crescent City was home, and despite the looming threats, it was a sight for sore eyes. Their path was illuminated by the moon's ethereal glow, a beacon guiding them through the maze of shadowed streets. Back in their safe house, they slumped into worn-out chairs, the weight of the world seeming to bear down on their shoulders. They sat in silence, nursing their wounds and nursing their thoughts. Hellfire had forged them anew, but would it be enough to save their city? In the silence of the safe house, they started strategizing. They knew they had to level the playing field, to find a way to counter the OG's spectral powers. The challenges seemed insurmountable, yet they knew they had no choice. They had come back from hell for this. Crescent City was their home, their responsibility. As dawn approached, they found renewed determination. They had confronted their nightmare, stood their ground, and survived. The road ahead was daunting, but they had already walked through hell. They had returned from the Hellfire, stronger, more resolute, ready to wage war against the spectral menace. The first rays of dawn broke over Crescent City, casting the city in a new light. As a new day dawned, Razor and 4T knew the true battle was just beginning. But they were ready. They had come back from the Hellfire, and they were ready to bring the fire to their enemy.
Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. We're so excited to have you here and share our content with you. If you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.